Chapter 3 Cornell, the Early Years. Orientation week began with a bang. The schedule was packed from morning till the late evening, and many events occurred in parallel, so one had to choose what to do and what to let go. To Amar, this was like trying to drink water from a fire hose. There were the many introductory activities hosted by the hundreds of interest groups and clubs on campus. There were the fun and games, outdoor activities, which beckoned under the fantastic Ithaca skies and were set against a mesmerizing Ithaca landscape. And there were the academic and college-related chores, such as buying books and stationery and enrolling for courses. Enrolling for courses. This one stumped Amar at first. Never before had he been in a situation where he could actually choose which classes to take, at what times to take them, and how to construct his initial steps in his journey to graduation. This was a complete departure from his earlier schooling in the 150-year-old venerable British school he had the good fortune of attending in India, from kindergarten right through grade 12. He simply did not know where or how to begin. Simple issues baffled him. What if the courses I take in my first semester do not add up toward a full curriculum over the duration of my tenure at Cornell? How do I know I'm choosing the right courses? Am I supposed to choose this? Isn't this the dean's job? What if I fuck it up? Amar was perturbed, and he decided to ask for help. He met his faculty advisor and laid the cards on the table. He was simply and plainly lost. Amar's advisor was a tall, larger-than-life African-American gentleman, a man of a warm heart and a protective, sheltering demeanor. He simply smiled and said, "It's okay, son. It'll work out. You'll see." And step by step, through a series of questions and answers, he got Amar to construct about 80% of his first semester schedule, leaving Amar to dot the I's and cross the T's later on. This was the skill and experience of the professor. By the time their meeting was over, in about 60 minutes, he had enabled Amar to complete what had seemed to be a daunting task, and something Amar had been struggling with for the past 3 days. There were the funny moments, too, when Amar asked for a vegetarian burger at the dining hall on top of the hill, Libe's Slope, as it was affectionately called. The guy flipping the burgers paused and turned to his supervisor and said, "Boss, he wants a vegetarian burger. What's that?" Amar wanted to help out, so he interjected, "Just leave the meat out. Everything else is good. Cheese, tomatoes, pickles, onions." The guy was momentarily hijacked into the twilight zone. You could see it on his face, and his mind was probably racing ahead with the central question, what the heck does someone do with a burger with no meat? I mean, can you have a ball game with no ball? By now, the line of students behind and in front of Amar had begun to chatter. As he waited for his burger, he heard the next 3 students say something to the effect of, "I'll have a double cheese and keep the meat in," or "regular for me, please," or "load on the beef, buddy." Amar did feel a bit out of place at the time. What he could not see then was that a time would come about 25 years later when his request would be much more acceptable in the mainstream, vegetarian burgers on the menu and vegetarian cuisine becoming a multi-billion-dollar industry, forming the cornerstone of healthy choice, culinary habits. Even then, he had to admit the situation was funny, quite funny. At other times, the English language and its colloquialisms created situations in real life for Amar that were not too far from the British sitcom Mind Your Language, which ran riot in the 70s and early 80s. On one occasion, Amar had made friends with a gorgeous Italian-American brunette from Massachusetts, and they were sitting down to listen to one of the many seminars during orientation week. Amar wanted to interact with her some more and thought of asking for some stationery that he could use during the seminar. Since he was writing with a pencil, he thought it quite natural to ask for an eraser, but there was one problem, a pretty major one at the time. In India, Amar had grown up to refer to the eraser via the British colloquial term, which is, hold on, rubber. Now, in the United States, and very much so at Cornell, a rubber meant something altogether different, and typically used by two people to have safe sex. So when Amar reached across 3 seats and asked in a fairly audible voice for Eileen's rubber, everyone paused in sheer shock. Even the professor stopped writing. Only when Eileen turned visibly red in the face and seemed to be on the verge of getting very upset did his wits awaken from their slumber and rescue Amar in the nick of time. Oh, shit. I mean, eraser. Sorry. In India, as in England, we call the damn thing a rubber. It's a bit like tomato and tomato. Sorry. And then the pause erupted into a mixture of chatter and laughter. And the professor started writing on the board again. Eileen gave Amar her eraser. Many months later, in fact, they also passionately used many rubbers. But Amar could not foresee this at the time. He could only hear the voice as the laughter and chatter died down, and the voice said to him, "Remember, it's all good. This is all good." And it was during the same orientation week that 5 friendships took root in the undulating landscape of Ithaca, New York, and lasted a lifetime. All 5 of them were unaware that the mosaics of their respective lives were starting to develop some common pieces of intersection, of friendship, of buddyhood that were to outdo the decades that lay ahead. Amar was unaware of the profound connections his soul would make during those magical years at Cornell. Alex was somewhere between 6 and 7 feet tall, a towering personality in many ways. Not just his physical stature, but his very demeanor, his thinking, and his intellect were all larger than life. And within this big guy, in the truest sense, was a kind and gentle spirit that wanted to give back more than it took, wanted to be fair to one and all in every circumstance, wanted to learn as much as possible about people, places, and things. And Alex was patriotic, deeply patriotic. The United States was a living entity for him, and he shared a special connect with her that went far deeper than the ordinary stirrings of citizenship. Alex was at least twice as smart as Amar, though he never made Amar feel it. Raja was the quintessential rich son of a wealthy Indian father who had obviously had so much of everything in life that he was now used to defining his own reality, getting his own way, and just making things happen the way he wished. He came into the folds of Cornell, perhaps the crassest of the 5 buddies, but he left Cornell a transformed human being. Somewhere along the journey, the spirit of Cornell, her mystical language, which Amar tried to tune into every now and then, and the influence of Alex and several other such towering personalities rubbed off on Raja and led to a transformation that was as permanent as it was complete. And for this and many other reasons, Amar would marvel at Raja and deeply respect him for the rest of his life. And then there was Sunil, the quiet and somewhat reserved guy from India, who had lived in the bustling and crowded North Indian city of Amritsar for the last 18 years, and who had visited Mumbai and Delhi many times. But their paths crossed only halfway across the globe in the tiny, quintessential town of Ithaca. Sunil was an earnest man, a gem in his own right, but his soul carried with it some very deep and troubling scars. Amar did not know what these were. None of the others in the group knew either, but Amar could sense that there was something there. And though they were close, very close, Amar never asked Sunil. Somehow he sensed that this was a very private space for Sunil and was best left alone until, and unless, Sunil chose otherwise. Amar respected the space for the next 20 years and further on for the rest of their respective lives. Yet despite this somewhat blind spot, Amar was endeared to Sunil in a special spiritual way. He was there for Sunil always, and deep within, Amar knew he could count on Sunil to be there for him too, should the need arise. Such was the unspoken yet very real bond between them. Vikram was known as Smiley, Whatever the situation, however bad the news, this guy would respond with a smile. At least at first. Amar was convinced that every time Vikram said fuck, he smiled first. He had to. Vikram and Amar met on their second night as freshmen at West Campus, where the U-Hauls were located. Vikram was in U-Haul 6, just adjacent to U-Haul 5. On the night they met, both were feeling a little lost. Quite lost, actually. Vikram, an American citizen by virtue of naturalization, had been living in India for most of his life, and that too in the then tiny, sleepy town of Pune. Not a hustling and bustling metropolis like Mumbai, or Delhi, or Bangalore, or Chennai. It was ice cream night, and these two were probably the only ones in West Campus who had nothing better to do than to seek out the free ice cream in Noise Center, the dining hall dedicated to Cornell's West Campus. So in the vast cafeteria made for a few hundred students, Vikram was slowly and diligently having his vanilla ice cream, and in stepped Amar into the Noise Center and into Vikram's life. Vikram was a bright guy, perhaps not as bright as Alex or Raja, but brighter than Amar. Vikram graduated with a bachelor's in electrical engineering, one of the toughest engineering disciplines at Cornell. He and his fellow double E's considered themselves, and probably rightfully so, as the creme de la creme of the engineering community. After all, EE was the real stuff, the tough stuff, unlike some of the other disciplines pursued on campus. For instance, Amar's engineering curriculum, even though quite mathematical in parts, was referred to by the EE community as almost fake engineering. They made fun of the acronym ORIE, which actually stood for Operations Research and Industrial Engineering, and rechristened it Organized Relaxation and Imaginary Engineering, or worse, oh really? I'm an engineer. Vikram and Amar stayed very close, even though their jobs and lives kept them in different parts of the world for a long time. Whenever they met, it was as though the months and years in between past had only been days, and they picked up from wherever they left off. This was the hallmark of their relationship, and it was not just Amar and Vikram that shared this privileged paradigm. It extended to all five of them. No matter where they were, no matter how much they had been separated by the dimensions of time and space. It did not matter if Alex was on the West Coast, Vikram in New York City, Sunil in Mumbai, Raja in Delhi, and Amar living his vagabond life as a globetrotter. Whenever they met, time and space collapsed, and it was as though their previous get-together had been only yesterday. And it was magic. Amar often wondered if this is what Einstein was looking for when he tried to sort out all the equations between time, space, and the speed of light. But perhaps Einstein was searching in the wrong dimension, that of the physical sciences instead of that of the spirit, and of humanity, and of friendship. The years these five spent at Cornell led them down different paths. Alex graduated and went to work for one of the world's premier management consulting companies, after which he went to Harvard and got his MBA. Somewhere along the course of his life, his close to 300-plus IQ drove him to get a PhD in operations research from Northwestern University. He landed as a successful investment banker on the West Coast and remained as grounded in giving back to the universe as he was in his early days. On major holidays such as Thanksgiving, Alex continued to spend his days serving food to the homeless in the soup kitchens of Los Angeles. Raja changed course several times during his tenure at Cornell, each time pursuing something more complete, more challenging, and more in tune with his own evolution. Many of Raja's friends considered Raja's shifting curricula as frivolous, but Amar saw it differently. He knew this was all part of Raja's evolution as a student and as a human being, and Raja needed to explore knowledge differently during different phases of his Cornell tenure. So when he switched from electrical engineering to English to medicine, Amar supported Raja, while at the same time cautioning him to put enough thought into these shifts so that they were not frivolous or whimsical. Raja was as intelligent as he was rich, so switching curricula posed no academic challenge to him at all. He eventually graduated with 2 degrees from Cornell, a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering and a Master's of Science in Applied and Engineering Physics. Yes, physics. Amar could never forget that bright spring day in early April on Campus Drive when Raja, beaming, came out of his physics building. Amar thought perhaps Raja was happy because he scored yet another A in one of his physics courses. But Raja was beaming for a far more profound reason, one that transcended academics, grades, and all other mundane stuff. As Amar gestured, as if to say, "What's up with you, buddy?" Raja exclaimed, "You won't believe what happened." And then Raja went on to say, "I was in the bathroom taking a piss, and you won't believe who walked in and took a piss right in the urinal next to mine. Dr. Hans Bethe. Fuck! I got to piss with the man who co-invented the bomb. He's like an Einstein, man, one of the fathers of physics itself." And Amar said, "Oh, fuck," in Indian slang, and then gave Raja a buddy hug, the customary greeting that Amar's band of 5 shared. Amar said, "This calls for a celebration, dude. Lunch is on me. You choose the place in College Town." And they both marveled at this entity called Cornell and reveled at being blessed to be in her fold at this point in their lives. And the voice spoke again to Amar and said, "Remember, it's all good. This is all good." Sunil had to deal with his internal issues, but did remarkably well in spite of them. He also explored as much of the Cornell life as he could, as part and parcel of his quest, his journey to find himself and to grow. Amar often marveled at Sunil's perseverance and his weathered down but never beaten spirit. Amar respected Sunil deeply. He knew that Sunil was much stronger than he was or could ever be, and he was happy for Sunil. He was happy that their paths had finally crossed, albeit halfway around the world from their common birthplace, that magnificent country called India. Vikram got a solid job when he graduated from Cornell, and he went to work for one of America's preeminent consumer products companies, and he enjoyed his work. Several years later, Vikram went back to business school to get his MBA from UCLA. What neither Vikram nor Amar knew on that day when Vikram was moving into his graduate student housing was that the universe had already conspired to make these 2 buddies meet again. Amar was crossing the road and helping his cousin's son get his bearings around campus, as the boy had just come in from India and was starting his undergraduate curriculum at UCLA, when he heard a familiar voice say, "Oe, Amar, Oe, Makana, Ide Kide." He immediately recognized it as Vikram's, gave forth the Punjabi exclamation of combined surprise, joy, and disbelief that his friend was standing just 15 feet away. Amar turned and saw Vikram, and the 2 met again and gave each other a buddy hug. And then they cursed each other in Punjabi and in Hindi for not saying that they were going to be at UCLA. They talked and caught up in 15 minutes what they had missed over the last 5 years. And it was like yesterday once more. And it was magic. Vikram and Amar met several times after that, in New York City, in Mumbai, and in Delhi. Amar met Sunil and Raja very often, as his work often had him shuttled between Mumbai and Delhi. Alex dropped off Amar's radar for a longer period of time, but when Amar eventually caught up with him, it was more than special. It was sublime, and it was like yesterday again. And the magic happened, as it always did. Amar was a bigger puzzle than the rest of them, and he did not even know it. When they arrived at Cornell, the others were more in touch with themselves, their goals, and their issues. They knew their own skin well, and they worked effectively from within it to achieve what they wanted. Amar, on the other hand, was stuck in what he later realized to be only a superficial need, a superficial drive. He had only one ambition: to succeed. No, not just that, to succeed brilliantly, to shine. And he was driven more by an overarching sense of duty. It was as though he had a personal and moral obligation to push himself so hard that he could even lose himself and his all. But he had to succeed. He had to deliver. To whom and why and at what cost and for what purpose he did not know. Definitely not then. Not for the next 20 years. He did not know where it came from or how it came about, and he subscribed to it almost fanatically, and it almost killed Amar's spirit, and he did not even know it. Not in his freshman year at Cornell. No, not even at the time he graduated with 2 degrees 5 years later. In fact, not when he worked in Boston or Chicago or Florida. Neither when he went back to MIT in 1993 for his graduate studies under a full tuition scholarship, nor when he graduated from MIT, not when he became a management consultant, and not when he rose to the top of his profession to become a global CIO of an international conglomerate having a turnover of $15 billion and employing more than 60,000 people across India, the United Kingdom, the United States, and about 25 other countries, and not when he drew a salary of $1 million while working as an expat in India for an oil exploration company with a market capitalization close to $20 billion. As the years passed at Cornell, Amar worked harder than the rest to succeed, to be on and stay on the dean's list, to graduate with distinction from Cornell's prestigious dual degree program. But there was a hollowness to Amar's achievements. He felt it vaguely but could not pin it down. While Alex, Raja, and Sunil had worked hard too, and had done very well too, some of them much better than Amar, what mattered most was that they had each used their years at Cornell to find themselves and their calling, so that these formative years formed the foundation for what they did and what they became for the rest of their years well beyond the boundaries of Cornell. Amar, on the other hand, was stuck in only one gear, the success one, and he did not pay much attention to the road he was driving on, or where he was on his journey. So when he graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Operations Research and Industrial Engineering, as well as a Bachelor of Arts in Economics, these degrees, esteemed though they were, meant little more than labels to Amar. He knew the subject matter well, and he leveraged these degrees effectively in his subsequent 20-year career. But he had missed the signal for the noise. Yes, he had not even tuned into it.